Hello and welcome to our part 7, our bonus event, which is the conclusion of our educational program, Global Healing Approaches for Enhancing Your Immune System Capabilities. We apologize for starting a little bit late. One of our experts and co-creators, Dr. Tom O'Brien, is having a few technical issues joining us, but he will be joining us very soon. So in the meantime, we're excited that you're here. And today, we are going to be talking about your questions. What are the things that are important to you in your healing journey? And you're going to have the opportunity to ask those questions live. And this special bonus Q&A is brought to you in partnership by Know We Well, thedoctor.com, and the Celiac Society of India. I'm your host, Jane Lynn Britton, and I'm the Director of People Experiences at Know We Well. In this important 6-part series, we looked at the most critical aspects of the immune system and how to tap into ancient, integrative, mainstream, and cutting-edge practices to make it efficient and to enhance its ability to handle day-to-day stresses and disease. We explored regenerative whole health approaches, including nutritional, mindfulness, spiritual, and fitness approaches from top experts around the globe to help transform your body's ability to handle disease and give you realistic approaches to protecting yourself and your family. And you can access all 6 parts of this series in the Knowledge Center within the Know We Well community. And like I said, today is for you to ask our experts the questions that will help you the most in your healing journey. Please submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many as we can, and as well as some of the unanswered questions from prior programs in the series. And now I would like to introduce you to our experts. Very soon, we will have Dr. Tom O'Brien, who is an internationally recognized expert and speaker focused on food sensitivities, environmental toxins, and the development of autoimmune diseases. He's a chiropractic doctor, a certified clinical nutritionist, a diplomat of the American Clinical Board of Nutrition, a teacher, book author, and founder of thedoctor.com, as well as the visionary behind the Gluten Summit, A Grain of Truth, one of the first online summits that brought together 29 of the world's experts on the gluten connection to diseases, disorders, and a wide range of symptoms and ages. And Dr. Tom is the Chief Health Officer at Know We Well. Ms. Ishi is a columnist, TV and radio speaker, and TEDx speaker, a researcher and author focusing on the effect food has on the body. And she's a clinical nutritionist at the Center for Dietary Counseling in Delhi. Ms. Khosla has authored many books. Among them are Eating at Work and The Diet Doctor. Passionate about nutrition and a strong believer in the power of foods, she spearheaded the first of its kind health food company in India in the business of producing and retailing health foods and operating health cafes. Ms. Khosla also founded the Celiac Society of India to spread awareness about wheat-related disorders in India. And today's program will be moderated by Ms. Mala Sakri. Ms. Sakri has been rated as one of the 50 most influential women in media for 2 years in a row and is one of the most prominent names in the Indian media and entertainment circuits. She was host of a popular TV show and has been moderator and anchor for many group events and programs, interviewing celebrities like Dr. Deepak Chopra, Dr. Jeffrey Life, Vishal Dadlani, and more. And now it is my pleasure to turn our program over to your moderator, Ms. Mala Sakri.
Thank you, Jane Lynn, and welcome everybody. We are 6 episodes old. In the past 6 weeks, we've tried to get you the best experts from around the world to help guide you to a healthier, fitter, happier life. Yogi Jayadevan taught us how to breathe right, and Sister Shivani taught us how to think right. From the inspirational Teddy Walls, who cured her MS, her story, to Anthony Rumel from San Diego, California, on best fitness practices. Learning about the ancient wellness sciences like Ayurveda and homeopathy, and getting first-hand tips from the world-famous Dr. Isaac Mathai to Dr. Deepika Gunamat. From the very charming Dr. Christopher Willard from Boston to the equally charming and enthusiastic Dr. Madiha, and not to forget whiz chef Manish Mehrotra from the Indian Accent to give us amazing recipes and food tips. All these experts spend time to address and explain healthful practices with one and only one objective: to keep you well and disease-free and help you lead a great quality of life. Our two rock stars who guided us through all of this, on the scenes, behind the scenes, and who lent their expertise and knowledge throughout the series, Dr. Tom O'Brien, all the way from Costa Rica, and Ishi in India. We could not let them go before one last fling. Greedy as we are for more of their knowledge, we asked them and they kindly agreed to answer all the unanswered questions and more. We have questions from past episodes from you, our audience, and as we go along, we will be picking up some today live. Dr. Tom will be joining us shortly after he gets over his technical issues. So ask away and we shall answer, and all will be well. Ishi, thank you for being, as always, our rock solid person to turn to on all things related to wellness.
Thank you, Mala.
I am going to start off with the one question that was repeated many times over throughout our 6 episodes. What is the anti-inflammatory diet and what are anti-inflammatory foods? Can you just go over that a bit?
Yes, that is such a crucial part of designing diets today for good health, be it for fighting the pandemic and the virus or the lifestyle-related disorders. All of it is seemingly boiling down to inflammation, and reducing your inflammation through diet is one of the most powerful things one can do to preserve health and longevity. So this is a very important part of the conversations regarding food, and therefore let's understand what really is, what are the inflammatory constituents in our food, and then we look at the anti-inflammatory. So what are things which are pro-inflammatory, and then we go on to the anti-inflammatory. So we can talk about what we shouldn't be having and what we should be having. So where does the inflammation come from really is the question in our food, because food is supposed to be good for us. And why should food be, causing inflammation? That's where the tipping point happens, where the difference between good food, natural food, wholesome food versus processed food and what we do to it, or even how we produce it. So if you look at, say, if you have our nutrients, I always like to explain it in the 3 nutrients that we have: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. These are the key nutrients that food gives us. And so can carbohydrates be inflammatory? Yes. Can proteins be inflammatory? Yes. Can fats be inflammatory? Yes. When we eat them the wrong way. So let's talk about, say, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are basically coming to us from all the sugars and the refined grains that we have, the whites as we call them, the maidas, and the polished rice, and of course white sugar. And these foods are typically refined, and that's how they become inflammatory. And when they increase our insulin levels, and excessive insulin in our body, because sharp rises of insulin and too much of insulin in our body can be inflammatory. So it's very easy to understand this form of inflammation coming from carbohydrates. Even things like too much of sugar through, say, fruits. If you eat too much of fruit, or you eat them having a glass of juice, is going to add to the sugar load and the excessive sugar, which can turn inflammatory. So a good food can become a bad food if you treat it badly, if you do too much to it. Look at proteins, inflammatory proteins. Processed meats can be inflammatory. Too much of animal protein can be inflammatory. I'm not saying you need to become vegetarian or vegan, but certainly too much of proteins can cause inflammation. And certain proteins in certain foods, like say gluten and say casein, which is milk protein, has been found to be inflammatory to certain kinds of people who are what we call celiacs. And today we know that wheat sensitivity or gluten sensitivity, which is a protein, can be affecting people even in the absence of celiac disease because of other reasons. So that's another conversation. So these are what I call inflammatory proteins. And coming to fats, fats can be inflammatory again when you process them. Say when you have the excessive heating of oils and fats, it causes what we call trans fats. When we hydrogenate fats, it leads to formation of trans fats, which are highly inflammatory or pro-inflammatory for the system, and their linkages with ill health, be it heart disease, be it belly fat, etc., etc. So these trans fats have no business to be there in a part of our as a part of our diet, because they are created, they are man-made and industrially produced. So when we look at fats, these kind of fats are the ones which are inflammatory. None of the natural fats are really inflammatory, unless we again have too much of a certain kind of fat, which is what we call polyunsaturated fats, so PUFAs. PUFAs again came into our diets because of the excessive use of refined oils. You know, we had sunflower oil and kardi oil and the corn oil and the soya oils, when we were not meant to have that kind of, such high levels of polyunsaturated fats. In the attempt to become healthier and avoid cholesterol, etc., we made a mistake there. And we started having excessive amounts of these highly refined polyunsaturated fats, which are inflammatory. So again, the question of too much of a good thing can also be bad. So I think this kind of sums up all the inflammatory proteins, foods that we get. In addition to this, if we have processed food in general, which has got preservatives, which has got pesticides and too many additives, all of that disturbs our gut flora negatively and causes inflammation. So anything which is, yeah.
So, Ishi, just to clarify it a bit for our audience, inflammation is the body's natural response to something that doesn't agree with it, right?
Yes.
Now, the fact is that, and we've discussed this before, a lot of diseases are caused by inflammation in the body. And there's a question right now from somebody in the audience watching saying, so what diseases are caused by inflammation?
Can we say, barring accidents and barring some, everything that we are talking about today, right from heart disease, diabetes, autoimmunity. Autoimmunity means things like thyroid diseases, hyper or hypothyroid disorders. Let's look at multiple sclerosis or alopecia or skin disorders, which are autoimmune, all of these, and respiratory diseases, asthma, joint pains. So everything from head to toe. If we talk about lifestyle diseases, even Alzheimer's disease for that matter, and cancers, and low immunity, the starting point of all of these is inflammation. So there is really, I think without exception, except when you have something which is out of the ordinary, some kind of an infection, even in an infection. So inflammation really is a body's adaptive response or a protective response to a problem. If there is stress on the body, it protects you by causing inflammation. So that is a good thing. If it doesn't cause inflammation, we will not be healing. But when we have too much of low-grade inflammation in our body, continuously the body is inflamed, that's when it leads to these diseases. So it's like, let me explain immunity. Immunity. If we just understand our immune system, if we don't get fever, if fever is a sign of inflammation. When we have a pathogen, an infection, the body is going to fight that infection by creating inflammation and the fever, and that protects the body. But if the immune system is constantly being bombarded with undesirable environment or a hostile environment, it is constantly under low-grade inflammation, and that's harmful. That's what leads to these chronic diseases. So acute inflammation is different from low-grade inflammation.
So a lot of us heard the word, inflammatory response for the first time during COVID, because it was seen to be a disease that caused excessive inflammation in the body. Is, again, a question from our audience today from Megha, saying, is therefore the Indian diet inflammatory?
Oh, absolutely not. It's not inflammatory. In fact, it would be one of those diets which could boast of having naturally protective constituents which are anti-inflammatory. Right from the wealth of the grains that we have, the variety of pulses and grains, and the variety of oils and oil seeds, and the variety of spices that we have, the entire spice box, so colorful. Those are where our antioxidants are. No Indian meal is complete without these spices. So I think we can boast of one of the most anti-inflammatory diets, provided we cook it well and we do not employ or that do not include the undesirable fats, the undesirable proteins, and the undesirable sugars and the carbohydrates. And I think the only thing I would like to say in an Indian context, because the question is very pointed to the Indian context, is that all traditional societies, not only in India, we had a high carbohydrate diet, a high carbohydrate cereal centric diet. And there were reasons for it because of our lifestyles and the excessive use of physical manual energy, which was provided by these foods. However, today with the energy consumption being a fraction of what it used to be, we need to tweak our Indian diets in favor of less carbohydrates, less cereals, and a higher content of vegetables and fruits, which are highly protective, anti-inflammatory. So if we are able to make that one shift, substituting the cereals, excessive cereals, and the sugars in our diets by vegetables and fruits, I think along with all the good fats and all the spices, we can't ask for more.
Ishi, again, another question from our audience today. In one of the previous episodes, Tom said that, okay, gluten is inflammatory, you need to drop it from your diet. Somebody is asking, I feel weak because I'm not eating any roti. What can I do?
Well, I don't know what the question is referring to. If you don't eat a roti, if she's talking about not having a wheat roti, then she can certainly substitute the wheat roti with millet rotis and with pulse rotis like besan and kala chana, and make up for that roti. And if first of all she must understand, she must justify her not having the roti. What are the reasons for her not having a roti? And is she a celiac, or what is her goal to do this? And if there could be other reasons for her weakness. So I'm not sure whether just not having a roti is going to cause weakness. There may be other reasons. So it needs to be, answered as a specific.
So just from my side, You can make so many different rotis and get different sorts of nutrition through the week, from besan roti to jawar roti to quinoa roti. They're all fabulous and tasty. Ishi, specific question. Many people are asking this. What is your view on the air fryer, and what should be cooked in the air fryer?
Okay, air fryer is a relatively new addition to Indian kitchens. And I'm not sure whether it's really traveled far and wide so far, but certainly we have taken a fancy to it because Indians, I think, love their fried food. And this kind of reduces their guilt. So I can first tell you that any cooking method which either shortens the cooking time or lowers the temperature of cooking is a good cooking method. And the air fryer typically reduces the cooking time and circulates the air, which prevents the loss of nutrients compared to conventional frying. Conventional frying has many other negatives, including formation of trans fats, like I told you, the inflammatory trans fats, the volatile decomposition products which are formed during frying. These are also, they affect the gut lining negatively. And acrolein, which is also formed when you fry food. All of these acrolein, VDPs, and these unhealthy byproducts of, like I said, trans fats are negative for the gut lining and pro-inflammatory. When you do air frying, you save yourself from developing any of these in the food. And the good thing is, of course, some nutrients will be lost when you heat. There's no two ways about it, but it shortens the cooking time. And so whatever you can cook, say, for instance, you would like to cook a fritter, like a pakoda, anything which is batter fried. So you can, give it an oil bath so that it sets in the oil and then push it in the air fryer so that the rest of the cooking happens in the air fryer and it shortens the cooking time without the negative effects of frying. So I personally feel that's one way of using it, but you can use it as a griller. You can use it to cook vegetables, grilled vegetables, and just about anything which goes into the oil can be put. In addition, it reduces, if you have a fried food which has been deep fried, you can also drain off the excess oil through the air fryer. That's how I use it a lot. And so I think there is a huge advantage in having one at home. And I think the more you use it, the more you start valuing it.
So again, another tip from my side, completely home tried. You can saute the pakoda with the batter on a pan and put it in the air fryer. It binds well. You can do the same thing with zucchini fries and French fries. Ishi, how about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, the next question that we have from many episodes, and this has been asked many times over. What are the best oils for Indian cooking? For sauteing, for deep frying, for pan frying, and for curries?
So the two characteristics, well, this is technical. I'll just give you a little, the smoking point, which everyone understands, I hope, and inherent stability numbers. These are the two virtues of a good cooking oil. And if you look at scoring these oils, cooking, first of all, can be done in mustard oil, can be done in sesame oil, and can be done in desi ghee. And a combination is always what I would recommend. Every kitchen should have a combination of oils. And again, talking about the Indian context, we do have our favorites in the north and the south. In the south, we have sesame. And in the north, we have mustard. And in the east also,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify this because lay people will not understand. When you mean a combination of oils, are you saying mix the oils or use different oils?
Use different oils.
Okay.
And so even in one meal, you can use the ghee in the dal and the mustard oil in the dry vegetable, and you can have your grain, which is your rice or your roti, with desi ghee. Absolutely. So the more variety you have, That's one principle of healthy eating. The more variety, the chances of better nutrition and better health. The chances of your getting all the nutrients are higher when you vary your foods. So whether it's the oils or the vegetables or the dals or the grains, it's always nice to change them. And because everything, there is no perfect food. So everything has a strong point and a weak point. So when you combine them, you get the benefit of all. So variety is important. And for those who would like to use olive oil, there is a myth I'd like to bust once again. I keep saying it over and over again, that extra virgin olive oil is a stable oil and can be used in Indian cooking without loss of anything except, remember, any oil, be it olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, or mustard oil. High heating destroys very important precious properties of oil, of a fat. So don't high heat any oil if possible. As much as possible, you can.
What if we want a samosa? What's the healthiest way of eating a samosa?
Yeah, I'm just getting there, Mala. I was talking about cooking right now, and the frying I'll just address. So certainly these oils are the cold pressed oils. So it's not only the oil, it's the way it's extracted. So high heat refined is absolutely no unless and until you have no choice. But in your homes, we have choices. So certainly use cold pressed oils and natural fats like ghee, butter, and even coconut oil. So you can use any of these oils in cooking. And looking at frying, somehow refined oils do have an edge on that because they are more stable for frying. So if you do need to fry, either mustard oil again is very stable, but even maybe rice bran oil or a canola oil if somebody is okay with it. But I would just say in the Indian context, mustard oil and rice bran oil work very well for frying. But again, as a choice of cooking, the frying should be used as an exception, as a treat, not on an everyday basis. And certainly do not reuse the oil when you have fried. Just throw away the oil. So start with small batches, small quantities, and discard the leftover oils. So that way you can have what we call a healthy way of eating your fried food. So that is certainly, and now we spoke about the air fryer, you can even put the fried food into an air fryer to drain out the excess oil. So yeah.
Very quickly getting on to the next one. Vegetables and fruits, right? These are good for us. You've been saying it. We've been talking about this. How many servings of vegetables and fruit should we have in a day, ideally? And what is a serving? Everyone is confused on, what is a serving? A whole bowl? Is it a small bowl? Just give us very specifically how many and how much.
So here is what I'd have to say about servings in general. Everybody is unique. Everybody's requirements are unique. And the only way one can deal with this kind of serving recommendations is by applying the half plate rule. Half plate rule means at least half your plate whenever you eat should be full of vegetables or fruits. Okay, and fruits, because of their sugars, need to be watched, and again, case to case, depending on the individual's requirements. But certainly half plate full is a very easy way of figuring out your vegetable intake. If you're having 3 meals, make sure that at least 3 times your plate is sort of giving you that much. The other very easy way of understanding is if this is your portion of, say, for non-vegetarians, meat or non-vegetarian food, then double up the quantity of vegetables. So that's a very easy way of visually getting your portion of vegetables. And the other is, I would say, this is what I tell my patients all the time, that your one meal of the day should be dedicated to this group. how it is so important to get the right number of servings. So whenever I call it the 3P principle, the 3P principle starts with, of course, planning and all of that. The second is proteins. So plan your meals around proteins and at least try and have 2 meals which are around proteins and pair those proteins with vegetables. And the third P is protective foods. So dedicate 1 meal to this food group, which is called fruits and vegetables, or the protective group. So if you do that, and it's a very simple example I'm going to give here. So either just a breakfast of fruits, or a lunch with salads and cooked vegetables, or a dinner with soup and steamed vegetables. It's very easy, it's a no-brainer. So I would rather communicate in more practical terms rather than counting the number of servings. And again, talking about vegetables and fruits, qualitatively, the more brightly colored, the better they are for you, the more they'll give you. So going back to our favorite rainbow diet, so either you can do the rainbow the whole day and ensure you get different colors, or at least your plate should have in 1 meal all the 7 colors, the way you want to do it. But the message for you is try and have deeply colored, brightly colored vegetables and fruits and on a daily basis. And lastly, one way of increasing your health quotient and preventing diseases, and this is time-tested, research-based studies, it's what we call alternate day fasting, where you dedicate every day, you eat normally, every alternate day, you eat only vegetables and fruits. And this is a sure shot winner for preventing long-term diseases. You can fight right from obesity to diabetes to heart disease through this simple technique of just dedicating 3 days, alternate days in a week, to vegetables and fruits. Very, very simple.
So unsolicited moderator advice to include more vegetables in your diet. You can steam sprouts and put them in your soups. You can steam sprouts and put them in your dals. You can put leaves in your dal, from palak to kale to just about any green leafy. Does that meet your approval, Ishi?
Oh, yes. What you're trying to do is to enhance the protein content of the vegetables. Is that what you're trying to do? Sprouts, actually, we count them in a protective foods for sure. Absolutely. But strictly speaking, they come under the pulse group, but that's a technicality. Fabulous ideas, Mala.
Thank you. So Ishi, the biggest confusion in people's minds, and again, we've had several people ask this in different ways: when to eat what? A lot of people say, in the morning, eat the fruits and be done with it. Never eat fruits after meals. Don't eat fruits in the evening. Eat your rice in the day and not at night. Eat your proteins, as you said just now, with every meal. Make your dinner the lightest. Please, can you help us? I mean, this is completely confusing for everyone.
Yes, and it'll keep on unless and until we stop generalizing. I think the problem is we try to have that one fix for one size fits all approach, and that's the fatal mistake I think all sciences make when it comes to food. And I think our ancestors had it right when they said that one man's food is another man's poison. And the fact that we have different constitutions and the Ayurvedic principles, which said, you eat according to your constitution, whether you are a Vata or a Kapha or a Pith, which meant they said everything is not for everybody. Everything is not the same for all the seasons. It's not for the same time of the day. So eat according to the time of the day, eat according to the seasons, and eat according to who you are. So if we try and just make one brush for everybody, it's not going to work. And therefore, the fixes are only going to increase. And today, I think the fixes have come down to fasting. That's the only thing that's working for people. So yes, coming to specifically what you said, when to eat what. It's, I think the most important principle to go with is digestion. that follow the body clock and use the circadian rhythm, which is the body's body clock, and use it in sync with the sun's body clock, with the day, how the day progresses. And if you do that and you don't eat too much food at the time when your body wants to rest, you are going to do service to your body. So that principle clearly holds good and holds ground, whether it's science or whether it's traditional wisdom. And that's really clearly saying that don't eat heavy food at night. Don't eat food which is difficult to digest at night. Don't burden your system at night. Even if you're a night shift worker, we need to find solutions. So that's the clear one message. Secondly, raw foods are best eaten during the earlier part of the day. It doesn't mean you can't have a salad for dinner. Don't hear me wrong. But certainly if you have a choice between lunch and dinner, you'll be better off at lunch, right? And as far as fruits are concerned, there is a clear advice on how to eat fruits in Ayurveda. That fruits are best eaten empty stomach. Now, that empty stomach does not mean only breakfast. It could also mean if you had your lunch at 1 or 2, then you can eat a fruit around 5 or 6. That's perfectly fine. And if you are not eating dinner and you want to eat a fruit dinner, that's also perfectly fine. But eating fruits right after a meal certainly is not the best. And it's, I would say, highly avoidable. A lot of us still do it. The mango still comes after the meal. I have seen it despite a lot of conversations with people around it, but it's really not the best for sure. And the wisdom is also backed with science today, and we understand why this is so. But if your salad has a little fruit, let's not worry about it. You know what I'm saying?
What if your dinner is only fruit?
That's fine. That's totally fine. But don't overdo fruits. Like I said, it depends on who you are. But if you're doing the alternate day vegetable and fruit fast, you can increase your portion of fruits. So that's when I tell my patients who love fruits, I said, then go on an alternate day fruit and vegetable fast. But remember, again, these are to be customized also. These are large, principles which are universal, but also need to be applied according to each individual.
So specifically, she just make it clearer for our audience. You are suggesting that on day 1, you can eat what you usually eat and hopefully incorporating a lot of your principles. And day 2, eat only vegetables and fruit. And day 3, go back to your normal diet. And day 4, eat. So alternate day fasting, have I got that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if this is to be a liquid fast, what would you, somebody has asked, what about water fasting and liquid fasting?
Well, huge merits in water fasting, especially if you have health conditions, and it is known to reverse several conditions, and the benefits are only emerging every day. Science is revealing more and more benefits of fasting. So yes, but I would suggest that again, if you have health conditions like diabetes, etc., and you're on medication, water fasting needs to be done in consultation or involvement of your physician, because it can be tricky whether to take the medicine or not, etc., etc. So, but if you can do water fasting, it's a great way to detoxify. And considering today in the pandemic, we have had a lot of stress, a lot of unnecessary eating, a lack of, mobility, and, we've been very sedentary. And some of us have had the infection and have had medicines, and some of them have had long COVID issues, plus all of it topped with vaccinations. So we have had really a bad innings in the last 1.5 years with respect to our health. And so fasting can certainly prove to be one of the ways in which you can restore the body balance back and rejuvenate and recover from all the negatives that have been inflicted on us for whatever reasons. So I would certainly recommend that.
What is
Water fasting could mean just water, plain water the whole day. But I certainly would not want anyone to go on a water fast without preparing for it and without reading enough about it. And today there is literature around it. So do not just embark on it unsupervised. But if you want to go for a liquid diet or a liquid fast, you can take clear liquids, and you can things like coconut water, nimbu pani, and your some juices. So it depends. Some hot soups, clear soups are also fine. Dal soups are also fine. So it depends on who you are, what your goals are. But there is merit in doing these, and just a general one meal fast or just a one day fasting is not going to hurt anybody. But how you break your fast is also very important. But certainly, because we are speaking about good health, we must understand that giving digestive rest is like giving your car going for servicing. Every car which runs well needs to be serviced and needs to be cleaned up and given some kind of a break. So these simple measures, which were actually a part of traditional practices of healthy eating, have been forgotten and need to be brought back. And this people keep talking about the autophagy and what are the benefits of fasting. One of the benefits of fasting, and autophagy is nothing but regeneration of new cells. So once you had damage, to be able to create new cells, fasting offers a fabulous tool to regenerate your body's old cells and to bring them to life, which is a fabulous, which is something which no medicine can do, no technology can do. Costs you nothing, and very, very effective. So something must be right about it, that our ancestors gave religious names to fasts, and all the traditional societies have fasting spells for a reason.
At the risk of being completely killed by my women friends and all the women out there who are watching, let's bust this myth once and for all. Please do not feel sorry for those going on a Karwa Chauth fast. They are rejuvenating themselves. They're going to emerge healthier. They're certainly not going to feel very hungry. And they're going to be, the sad look is only to get a gift out of you. So it's all good. Ishi, we are really wanting some very specific inputs in terms of your menu. Okay. And this has been asked again and again. I've had at least 8 to 10 people message and say, please tell us specifically what to eat. I know you like to shy away from it, but specifically breakfast, lunch, dinner, give us a day of your menu. Come on, today you can relent. Today you can do it.
You mean what I eat or what one should eat?
What you eat, and I'm sure you eat what one should eat.
Can I just say, I listen to my body. I don't have a prescription that I have to eat the same thing every day. If I feel like eating in the morning, if I'm hungry, I would eat. And if I'm wanting to do an intermittent fast that day, I will not eat even if I'm hungry. So I kind of play by my feeling and my goals. And my goals keep changing. And sometimes I'm feeling great and all perfect, and I will indulge myself and eat a breakfast and eat a, but I all I would say is that I definitely don't load up in the morning, because I am not a instinctively very hungry person in the morning, but I need my little small cup of tea, which is dairy free but has a little sugar or a little bit of honey sometimes. And then my nuts are something I have tried to give up, but I can't in the morning. So I do have my soaked nuts, which are assorted, or sometimes it's just almonds, it depends. And that keeps me going till about 12. And I have it seems like a clock inside. At 11:45, it rings. And it makes me think of what's in the kitchen, what's happening, things about food. That always happens. It's uncanny at how the body clock functions. And so I would certainly grab a snack, a small snack at that time, or sometimes I would, depends on my work too. let it pass. And lunch is usually a meal which these days with the lockdown has been with the family. So it's been unavoidable. When I was at work, it was a very, very frugal lunch because I was usually just sitting. And but today with the lockdown and the family eating together, lunch is a time to be part of the, part on the table. And therefore I eat my lunch, and which is usually lentils and vegetables, and the portion of rice depends on, like I said, my goals, but it's usually very frugal, small portions of rice. And then comes my sweet time at about 3 4, and then there's a tea time which happens around 5. And usually that's the time I like to eat. And that continues until 7, depending on my meetings and my schedule. And then dinner is usually very frugal again. So my eating window is usually 11:45, 12 to about 7. And I am not following any particular regime, but that's how my body is. And pretty much focusing on proteins and vegetables. And I do indulge myself in sweets, but usually of the right kind. But there is a huge variety in my food and my, the way I eat. So sorry to disappoint you, Mala, if you were wanting to hear something very dramatic. No, it's not like that. And certain days when I'm not feeling good, I would just eat very, very light and just be on soups and salads and fruits. But usually that's the way it is. And I also try and see if I'm active or not active. If I'm not engaging in enough physical activity, I cut down the carbs. And if I am active around, this has not happened recently, but if I'm moving around a lot, like on a holiday or a trip, food changes.
So Ishi, you are not a normal person. Okay, we are normal people. We have normal desires and needs. So would you say, and again, unsolicited moderator input, would you say if we have, let's say, a dairy-free cup of tea in the morning with honey or with stevia, going on to fruits, maybe 1 fruit or 2 fruits for breakfast, going on to our, let's say if our lunch is our main meal, going on to a carb, protein, vegetable lunch, and then for dinner, just eating pure protein and vegetables. Does that sound okay to you?
Brilliant, brilliant.
When can I eat the samosa? What's a good time?
When you earn it, after being virtuous.
Okay.
Yeah. And let me tell you, ever since I went off gluten about 10 years ago, I have been experimenting with different people to get the right samosa. And we have cracked it. And I'm the first person who runs for it when it's made, because I just love homemade samosas. But yeah.
We are recording this moment. Ishi Khosla loves samosas.
On record.
On record. Gluten-free, of course. The next thing, I just want to clarify this in your head, or in our heads actually. They say that if you eat something sweet, you've indulged, you've got a craving, you've eaten something sweet. But if you immediately after you eat that sweet, if you really walk around and just increase your activity, the effect of that sweet on your body will not be as bad as it usually is. Is that right?
Obviously, I mean, that goes without saying. You can, when you move, you are burning calories, right? And you're using up that sugar, that energy is being used. So certainly your blood sugars are going to be, depleted, and therefore what you've eaten is going to get used to some extent, but not entirely. So your insulin metabolism will certainly be in your favor if you utilize that sugar by moving as much as possible, and but not entirely. But it also depends on how much you're eating and how much you're moving. So if that equation is tilted to you're having a large cheesecake and then or a ice and a, 2 scoops of ice cream, and then moving for 15 minutes, it's not going to do very much, but it will do something. It's better than just sitting. That's all I would say. But that's really not, it all depends on how much you move and how much you're eating and who you are. What are your goals? Are you a diabetic? Are you a sports person? Are you obese? Are you underweight? So it's so difficult to make generalizations.
Okay, I'm trying to be as sympathetic as possible to audience causes. One of the most feelingly asked questions by a few people in the audience is, why do women find it so difficult to lose weight? How is it that if both of you are on a diet, the man loses weight and it's so frustrating, and the woman just, in spite of being really abstemious, she just finds it that much more difficult?
It's a very good question, Mana, because even as a practicing nutritionist, as a health counselor, I have been always trying to figure out the real reasons behind this. And we've always blamed the woman to being more careless and more casual and not, not serious enough sometimes, and cheating. And of course, today, I feel it's none of all that. It's simply perhaps we need to understand that a woman's body goes through much more upheaval compared to a man with respect to the hormones. And that the hormonal changes which a young woman in her reproductive years has in menstruation every month itself causes a change in gut function. There is a dysbiosis, a change in the gut flora during menstruation, pre-menstruation, during menstruation. And if you look at the symptoms of, say, what we call typically PMS, it is exactly what we have when we talk about gluten sensitivity. There are food cravings, there is bloating, there is irritability, there are mood swings, all of which are related to when we say we have a gluten sensitivity. These are things which happen. We gain weight, we become crabby, we become retentive. And there are also GI changes. I mean, the gut also, some people get constipated, some people get loose motions and IBS kind of symptoms. So typically, if that happens to a woman just every month, there is an issue. Then she goes to childbirth, and huge changes in gut function happen during pregnancy and childbirth. And today, research tells us that a woman's gut in the third trimester is as bad as a person with inflammatory bowel disease. And today, you can understand why the Indian or the traditional societies focus so much on a woman's health, on a woman's diet post-pregnancy. Why was the fuss on having those spice waters and not having cold foods and her not eating certain kinds of foods? Simply because they realized perhaps that, maybe they were wise enough to know that the gut underwent serious negative changes, which can affect the woman not only in terms of her lactation and what is going into the baby, but also for her future risk to diseases. I remember my mother-in-law saying, if you don't eat these things and if you eat the wrong things, you're not going to take care and get arthritis later in life. To my logical, scientific bent of mind, it was ludicrous. But today I understand the science. So if you look at a woman's gut compared to a man, certainly we are not at an advantage. And that explains women getting more prone to be, having a leaky gut and food sensitivities. And that itself is one of the reasons for gaining weight or also not, losing weight as easily. So you need to understand that the issue of food sensitivity arises perhaps because of the upheavals a woman faces during her life cycle, which are not faced. That's one of the reasons. Plus, I guess women are also more prone to, by default, they are more fatty. The ratio of fat to muscle is far more compared to a man. So their metabolic rate is also different. And maybe they're not as active. So those are the other lifestyle factors. But intrinsically, one of the reasons which in my practice I have found as contributing is the woman who undergoes these major changes. And then you can see what happens at menopause, perimenopause and menopause. As a practicing nutritionist, I thought perimenopausal women had it all in their head. It was all just making excuses that they can't lose weight and they're getting this girth. And I said, oh, you're partying and now you're drinking, don't make excuses. But looking at it more closely, I think I'm more compassionate and more empathetic. And the message is that we need to be more careful and address food sensitivities more than the man.
So you touched upon drinking. What about alcohol?
What about alcohol?
Good.
Yes, it depends on who you are, what your requirements are, and what you're drinking and how much you're drinking. So in moderation, as we all say, it's all right. It won't hurt you. Maybe it may even go in your favor, but you don't have to get that favor only from alcohol. Those benefits of alcohol, which people have made an excuse for drinking. Oh, I'm drinking wine for my heart. It can be derived from other foods as well. So that's no excuse for drinking. But certainly, if you do drink 2 small drinks, maybe 2-3 times a week, works well for men, and 1 drink 2-3 times a week for a woman works all right without any damage. And so maybe the audience is not very pleased with this, but that's the way it is. Even 1 extra drink beyond this can be harmful. So that is research and puts a woman at risk for many, many kinds of cancers, including breast cancer. A woman is far more prone to the negatives of extra alcohol. So please, and of course, we know alcohol is an irritant to the gut. So if you have a leaky gut, you need to moderate your alcohol on a serious note.
So,
And
Ishi,
yeah.
what if I don't drink for 20 days and then I want to drink 1 bottle of wine?
Unfortunately, no. And this is a question which is often asked. And can I drink 1 on the weekend? I mean, I can drink all these 6 drinks on the weekend. No, afraid not. It doesn't work like that. You are damaging your liver and putting it at risk because it has to work much harder. Remember, alcohol is a poison for the liver, for the body. So it needs to detoxify itself. So it doesn't work.
Okay. Your last word on dairy.
Oh, well, dairy is something which has been a part of our lives, and to do without it is certainly something which has to be justified. And so if you have reasons like, for instance, if you have health issues, if you have food sensitivities, if you're gluten sensitive, you may also not be doing well with dairy. So if you do, if you don't, it's a different story. So if you do have, say, for instance, difficulty in losing weight, if you have any of the lifestyle chronic diseases, as we spoke about, diabetes, heart disease, cancers, etc., then yes, dairy elimination or reduction is definitely needed. And see, the dairy is, when we say dairy, we include, let me specify, milk, curd, paneer, cheese, and all the khoyas, etc., the products which we make out of it. And it has 2 parts. When we say dairy, lactose and milk protein, which is casein. So because people tend to use this word lactose intolerance very freely when they're dairy intolerant. So lactose intolerance is a different issue. And let me specify that, because lactose is a sugar of milk, which people in their adulthood very often get, they get an inability to tolerate it. They become sensitive to it. And lactose intolerance is typically a very transient thing, that you had milk and you had bloating and you had a cramp and you had a need to use the washroom and all of that. Lactose intolerance is a very it's not it's not a serious condition. Let's put it that way. And it just bothers you for a short while, and therefore lactose-free milk is also an option for such people. And it can be overcome by taking lactase, an enzyme which is also available, or by not having milk and having curd, which has digested that sugar and the lactic acid is formed. And most people who are lactose intolerant can tolerate yogurt, etc. So that's the different condition. So because when you're using the word dairy intolerance, we are really referring to milk protein intolerance, which is casein. And like I spoke earlier, gluten and casein are two proteins which we have now found to be irritants to the gut, causing a leaky gut, and antibodies against gluten cause inflammation. And likewise, also the casein has been found to create inflammation. But we don't know whether it was the gluten which caused it or the casein, but typically we know that 50% of people who are gluten intolerant are also dairy intolerant. So that's not everybody. So some people who can still tolerate dairy should continue taking dairy if there's no other issue and if they're fine. But people who have chronic issues which are not resolving, or have established autoimmune problems and are having trouble with other symptoms which are persisting, certainly there is merit in eliminating milk as dairy in all its forms. So then it doesn't matter whether you're taking yogurt or whether you're taking cheese or milk. Dairy is dairy. It will carry the milk protein, which will hurt you. So it is a case-to-case answer here. It depends on your particular health issues. So I would say, if you can have dairy, don't give it up unless there is reason for giving it up. And when you do give it up, then you make sure that the diet is also well planned, you have alternatives, etc. But having said that, there are huge concerns with people about calcium and how they're going to get a good source of calcium when they eliminate such a valuable food, calcium-rich food from their diet. So like I said earlier, if you take a diet which is well planned, lots of green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and healthy alternatives in general, you have a healthy diet, there is no problem in getting enough calcium. The body finds its calcium from plant food very, very easily. And on the contrary, people in the world where there is a high intake of dairy, the osteoporosis rates are much higher compared to those parts of the world like the Far East where dairy is not consumed and in that quantity, and osteoporosis rates are much lower. So that's the larger picture. But even individually, we know that drinking milk is not the only way of keeping your bone or your calcium bank healthy. You can eat a normal diet. And the best example here is our mammals, the other mammals, the ones which give us milk, the cows and the goats, etc. They have healthy bones and they produce milk and they are not osteoporotic and they don't drink milk. So that's one thought which I'd like to leave with people who have these concerns. And so I would just say that dairy is a food which you need to eliminate only if you must and you have reasons to, and if your problems are not getting resolved, and or you have certain serious, established intolerance to dairy. And don't confuse it with lactose intolerance. So I think you're on mute, Jane.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just saying we've had some technical problems today. And I'm so sorry, Mala has dropped off and Dr. Tom has not been able to log in. So we're really sorry about that. But Ishi, this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. And we have one more question. Do you mind if I throw that out? That's come in. And it's about someone has a 3-year-old daughter who's low in iron. And I don't know, we've really talked about that. Is that something that you might be able to have some quick tips on how she might support her daughter?
Yes, if we need to get into why she has low iron levels, does she have a low iron or a low hemoglobin level? And does she eat a good diet? And despite that, if the iron levels are low, she needs to definitely do investigations. Ruling out celiac disease and food sensitivities, IgG testing should be done for sure to understand why she has low iron. And sometimes just a thalassemia minor could be causing the low iron. So she needs to get deeper into this and first of all, ensure that the diet is healthy and balanced.
Wonderful. And actually one other question, because we've been getting a lot of people asking not only about what you eat, but what do you do, Ishi? You look so young and your skin is beautiful and your hair. So there must be some secret that you have that's related to all the nutritional wisdom that you have.
I think it's just the camera, Jane Lynn.
I think it's more than that.
It's just the fact that I just eat. I've just shared all that with you, and I don't think I can boast of anything specific that I do to look after it. It's just what goes inside. There's nothing on. I don't do any extra work on it. So I'm glad to hear that.
Well, you do look great and definitely are such an inspiration for all of us.
Thank you.
So we want to thank everyone. We've gone over our time and you've asked so many wonderful questions and thank you so much for joining. But first I wanted to thank Ishi and Mala and Dr. Tom. Mala and Dr. Tom are not with us at this moment, but thank you all for today for this very informative and educational Q&A, and as well as for putting together this series to really help us by sharing your wisdom and your expertise so that we could take those practical steps to really support our own immune systems and our own health and well-being. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane.
And Mala, I was just starting to wrap up, but I would love it if you would like to say any final words as we're just saying thank yous to you and everyone for the wisdom and expertise that you've shared and for creating this series.
Thank you, Jane Lynn. I'm sorry, we all face technological challenges, not just from India, but across the world. Ishi, there was one question which I have to ask. The secret of your glowing skin and hair, which somebody has just put down persistently. I don't know if Jane Lynn has been there.
I've just answered that question, and I just think I feel very flattered, but this is an illusion.
Let's get off that and say, what's on your dinner table tonight?
I don't know, but I really don't know. But certainly, the compliments are taken very well. Thank you very much for whoever has said that. But the reality is that I think I have just good lighting.
Okay, all right. And we all know that's not true. And thank you, Ishi, as always. And Jane Lynn, over to you to just wind this up and till we see you again.
Yeah, so thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. For joining us today, as well as for this series. We have loved coming together each week to learn and to be motivated, like I just said, to take those key steps that boost our immune system and support our health and well-being. And as a reminder, as part of your Know We Well regenerative whole health benefits, you can connect with our experts in the Know We Well community with Ishi and Mala and Dr. Tom. And in the Knowledge Center, you can access past episodes from this series and very soon the one from today as well. You can also access the related handouts and resources. And throughout the community, you can access over 40 and growing educational programs and evidence-based resources. And finally, when the webinar ends, a brief survey will pop up. We ask that you take just a minute to give us your feedback on this series, because your feedback is so important to us so that we can continue to offer the educational resources that are most helpful to you on your healing journey. Thank you again to everyone for joining us today, and be well.
Thank you, Mike.